Good morning.
Good morning.
Rockstar glasses. I am so glad you're all here, but I can see that we have quite a few that are actually representing us down at Pride. And so we send our love and our support to them and as they are in the parade. Troy and I were there yesterday, and it was a hoot. That was just so much fun. So next year we're going to take stickers, because they had stickers. The Denver church, I don't know if any of you know, but this is the first collaboration of all the churches having a booth together to spread our word of our philosophy as one. And so it was really awesome. So we were there with the Denver church and some from Lakewood, and I think those were the only ones that were there during our shift. I don't know if anybody else showed up during your shift, Ross. But it was just so much fun. But Denver church had these stickers that said, "Love your shine and shine your love." And there was not a kid that could get by my booth. I was running out stickering every kid. I was glad there were no police officers anywhere around. I accosted every little kid there was. It was so much fun. I thought, what a beautiful sticker. So I was texting Julie, we got to get stickers next year. So we wish them the best, and we appreciate that they're honoring us and supporting us in the Pride Parade and at the booth today. And this also is the week of the summer solstice. And on Friday, we had, I guess, our second official drum circle at the sanctuary in Castle Rock. And there were 22 of us that came. And it was awesome. And as the sun set, we went outside, and as it came down and had this glorious sunset, we celebrated the solstice, and we set our intentions for the next year, and it was just a wonderful time. And in it's the summer solstice celebrations. That was a tongue tie. The summer solstice celebrations have been going on for centuries. There was another S in there. So for centuries, and with the Native Americans, they actually had a holy person, I'll say person because I don't know that it was always a man, but they would go and they would sit in these strange places and watch the sun, the moon, and the stars all day, all night, so that they could keep track of what was going on on our earth and in our Father's sky through the whole time. And then they would know when the solstice was coming so that they could have a celebration. And they knew when the equinox would happen, and so they kept track of all these things. And I don't know if anybody's ever been to Chaco Canyon. Okay, the sun watchers were in Chaco Canyon, and so there were areas that they would paint in the back of them, and they would sit and watch the sun. La Fajada Butte is one of them. So it was really beautiful last night to get to celebrate it in Castle Rock and see that beautiful sunset. So thank you for all of those that showed up for the drumming. And a glorious solstice to all of you. So this month, our topic is fulfillment. And as they always say, as you have a topic as a practitioner or a minister, you live it all week long. And so all week I kept thinking, fulfillment. How am I going to do a service on fulfillment? Maybe Julie shouldn't be in the parade. Maybe. I was going back and forth. And so, of course, God has a fun sense of humor. And so it was coming up for me everywhere I went. I kept asking myself what fulfillment meant and couldn't answer the question. And so I thought, well, how is it that I'm supposed to do this and talk about fulfillment? Because the only fulfillment I can think of is after Thanksgiving dinner. And then it's gone after I take my nap. So how do I write this and talk about fulfillment and actually have a message? So I went around and around with it, and I kept trying to figure it out. And as practitioners, when we have a prayer session like wonderful Cindy DeMoye will be up here available for prayer after service, a lot of times when people come to us for those quick treatments, or if they come to us for a session, we discover as they're sitting in front of us that we've been dealing with whatever they're talking about all week prior to them coming to us. So it's been an interesting path as a practitioner, because sometimes somebody will sit down in front of you and you're so willing to give of your soul and of your heart and to help them, and to help them see that truth. And then they say something that you've been struggling with all week. And you're like, oh, well, thanks for bringing it back. So that, again, Spirit has a wonderful sense of humor. At least that's what I'd like to think it is. But it's been fun. And so this week I went and thought, well, if I don't know how to talk about it, maybe I should know what it means. And so I looked it up, and pretty much the word explains itself. Fulfillment. It is a satisfaction or happiness as a result of fully developing one's abilities or character, or the achievement of something desired, promised, or predicted. And I thought, okay, that's Thanksgiving dinner. That's pretty easy. Okay. And then there was the performance of a task, duty, or role as required or pledged. And I thought, well, that one's not as fun. That doesn't sound like Thanksgiving dinner. But when I was in my 20s, I had been in the industry I was in for years, and for probably about 10 years, and I had a closet full of Jones of New York size 8 business suits with shoes that matched. I spent hours getting my hair done and my makeup ready, and I was this professional saleswoman, and I was rocking it. I was well known in my industry. I was doing a great job. I was making good money, and I thought, I've got it nailed. I'm fulfilled. I had the husband, the high school sweetheart that was a handsome, intelligent deputy sheriff. I was rocking it. I bought the new car, and so I was convinced at the time that I was fulfilled. I was getting it done. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And I remember sitting in a bar, which was not uncommon at the time either, but sitting in a bar with a friend, and she said, if you were to rate your life on a scale of 1 to 10, what would it be? And I'm like, oh, it's a 10. And she goes, if you were to rate your marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, what would it be? And I was like, strong 7. And then the next week he left. And I realized that I wasn't really fulfilled. I wasn't living the life I could have lived. And I was thinking that just because I had it, I was happy. And I think that's where we get that loss of what that connection is fulfilled, happy. And is happy always fulfilled? And so it was this strange point for me in my 20s to try to figure out what I felt was fulfilled, and was fulfilled really filling me with happiness and what I wanted in life. And so, and long story short, thank you for leaving, sir. It helped me open up who I was. And I bless him on his path. He's a wonderful man. And I found another wonderful man in my life that blesses me daily. But he's not always my fulfillment. I have to make that from in here. And that didn't happen until my ex-husband left. That I had to start liking myself when I went home, and had to sit in front of the TV or eat dinner by myself, and I had to enjoy my own company. And that was an interesting place to be and to fill. And so, as I said, we get approached with fulfillment all week when we're working on it, right? So I was blessed this week to go to a conference in downtown Denver for the National Apartment Association. And so all of the people in the country came to Denver and saw our beautiful, glorious city from all over in the apartment industry, from Canada to Mexico, Puerto Rico, and the United States. So it was fabulous. We had over 8,000 people in attendance, and we had Michael J. Fox. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I just love him. I have loved him for years. And so to hear him speak was really fun. And he did tell 2 jokes about Parkinson's. One was that he had been camping with his children all week in Canyonlands and Moab and Arches, and he hadn't shaved. And so he had shaved just for us. And so this cut right there on his lip was actually a trophy, because for him, shaving was a blood sport. And I thought that was awesome. And then the second one was that he has a true definition of optimism, and that's starting to golf at the age of 40 with Parkinson's. That is the true definition of optimism. And I had to hand it to him, because that was that over 40 and I wouldn't play it. So he was really fun. But one of the things that I figured out as he was talking was his whole speech was about fulfillment. And I thought, okay, thank you again. And he was talking about the fact that here he was, Alice P. Keaton. I don't know, there's some people that are much younger in the audience. So I don't know if you know Family Ties, but you might know him from Back to the Future. But in Family Ties, he was Alice P. Keaton, and he was pretty popular. We all grew up with him and knew him, and he was an awesome actor of a completely annoying character. And I loved him. And so here he is, Alice P. Keaton on Family Ties, and he had taken a hiatus, and he went and did the movie Teen Wolf. And he was filming Teen Wolf, and he had all of this boar hair taped, glued to his face, and he was drinking his lunch through a straw because he couldn't open his mouth with the prosthetics. And he was sitting there thinking, my career's over. I'm Teen Wolf. I'm never going to make it anywhere. My success is going to slip through my hands. It's all going to be over if I don't do something about this right now. I can't be Teen Wolf. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm sitting there thinking, but you were Teen Wolf, right? And he's thinking, it's all going to go away. I got to grasp it. I've got to work hard. I've got to do all of this. Of course, he was partying really hard, too. But he was so afraid of losing it that his fulfillment would be gone. So he was sitting there thinking that all of it was going to be over soon because he was Teen Wolf. And then there was somebody that was there scouting the site to film Back to the Future. And he was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that movie. And they said, no, you're Alex P. Keaton. You can't have the time off. You can't do Back to the Future. And he was like, oh, I'm doomed. My career's over. You're Alice P. Keaton, But he was convinced it was going to be over, so he was arguing with them, and he was trying to get in. Well, it just so happened that Meredith Baxter Birney got pregnant and had twins, so they had a hiatus. So he could go film Back to the Future. And he got to do it. And then after the Back to the Future film, he was like, oh, it's over now. I reached the culmination. It's all going to be done. And he's talking this whole time thinking it's all going to end because his fulfillment's supposed to be temporary. And I'm sitting there thinking, but you were Alex P. Keaton, and then you're Marty Fox. I mean, how can you, Marty McFly, I guess it was his name, not Fox. But, how can you not think that your career is going to keep going? And he kept thinking it was going to end, it's going to go away, my fame is going to go away. And so he kept working harder and harder and harder, and he was never home. Now by this time, he was explaining that he was so wealthy that he actually had a number of cars, Ferraris, Porsches, Bentleys, any muscle car he could, and he decided what to drive in the morning by what color shirt he put on. He was that lucky. And I'm thinking, if that's not fulfillment, right? How could you not be fulfilled with cars that match your shirts? And it still wasn't enough. So he was still struggling with it. He was still, and by this time he had finally married Tracy. They had 3 kids, and he was still working hard because he couldn't let that go away because then he wouldn't be everything he thought he was going to be. And finally, at age 29, he was diagnosed with early stage Parkinson's. And he thought, well, that's not true. And so he went to 5 specialists to find out just how true it was. And so he decided that he would stay home closer to home and he would work on Spin City so that he could be closer to his family and not be as much of a workaholic. But what he realized was now they told him you only have 10 more years to work before it gets really bad and you could pass away. So then he really grasped it. And he worked even harder and was away from the family even more because he was only going to have 10 years of acting. Lucky to say he's actually 53 today, still working. So that wasn't true. But he decided at that point, when he realized it wasn't working and it was exhausting him and it was taking him away from his family, that he would stay home when he had his 4th child and be around the kids and see the family. And he said that was the first time in his life he felt fulfillment. Was when he was actually with the people he loved and with who he wanted to be with and watching them experience the life and the world that he had given them. And so he said that was it. I finally figured it out. It took too long, but I figured it out. And he said, but today that's my biggest joy, is to be spending time with my family, my friends, and watching their joy as well. And so we had afterwards somebody interview him and ask questions from the audience. And one of the questions from the audience was, what is important to you in a day? And he said, it's time with my kids. When I'm at home and my kids say, Dad, come see this, I don't say, wait a sec. I don't finish what I'm doing before I go. I get up, I go, and I experience what they thought was so important to share with me. And that's where I get my greatest joy. And then they said, well, what makes you happy in a day? And he says, babies. I love babies. And he said, I love giving them back as much as I love them, but I love babies. So it was great to hear him and to hear his actual realization of tapping in to what was important to him to finally reach fulfillment, and that happiness and fulfillment had to go together, hand in hand. And so I wonder, back when I was in my 20s, how did I miss the other half of that equation? And I think it's when we're separated from oneness, when we separate from truth, and when we separate from the source, that we miss what we're doing and the purpose that we're doing it. We miss the joy in our day-to-day, and we forget that we are blessed with so many things, like Teen Wolf, and we're blessed with cars that match our shirts. And, so we miss that when we see that separation, and we're striving for more and more and more and more because we forgot to celebrate and feel the happiness. So it was a fun conference. One of the things that I did at the conference, I on a wild whim, I had to go to the trade show floor, which had 400 booths of people that had wares and businesses that would work in the apartment industry. And so I'm on a property that we're remodeling with a $2.7 million exterior rehab. So I was like, I'm going to go find carpet. I'm going to go find windows. I'm going to go find all these things. So I got to talk to them all. And they all have some reason you should come to their booth, whether it's the glow-up pen or whatever it is. But one of them had a fortune teller. And so I was there talking to the gal, and she's an old friend. And she said, oh, come on, come to the fortune teller. And I was like, my feet are killing me. I really, she says, you got to do it, Maureen, come on. So I was like, all right, Foy, I'll do it. So I went over to the fortune teller, and I sat down. And she said, okay, pull 3 cards, put them out. And I'll go over your tarot with you. And I was like, okay. So I picked up the cards, and I shuffled them, and I put them out. The first one was magician. The second one was worldly. And the third one was fulfillment. Thank you, God. One more time. I guess I didn't get it the first 17 times. So on Friday, I knew I had to come home and get working on my sermon after the drum circle. And interestingly, there was a class I wanted to take. And I was like, oh, it's too expensive. It's $500. I'm not going to take that class. And so I thought, oh, it'll be fine. And so we're sitting there and having happy hour and drinking a beer and cooling off before the drumming circle. And I'm sitting there talking, and I get this text before I had gotten to the dinner that I had actually won $500 at the trade show. So fulfillment. So it was really it was a fun week, but I had to keep laughing because I was waiting for how I was going to talk or what the message really was. And every step I took, the word just kept hitting me, or the action or the realization or whatever. But so anyhow, it was an interesting conference, and I was so excited to see Michael J. Fox. That was my highlight. My $500 should be, but it was Michael. But so in reality, when you think about fulfillment, you have to tap into that happiness side of it, and celebrate and have gratitude for what you're fulfilling. Because if you miss celebrating it, then you miss having the full fulfillment. And so I think the best time I ever knew the true definition of fulfillment was when I was a kid, because I was happy that whatever came my way was there. And so I think it's easier for us to do that when we're little. And so I found a video of the perfect little girl to teach us what that really truly is. And she cracks me up because I want to do this, but I don't know that I can stand on my sink. But as you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. But so watch this and see where you think her happiness and fulfillment come together. Eric? Isn't she the epitome of when you're a kid and you're feeling fulfilled? I thought her feeling standing there in front of the mirror, yes, 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 on her sink was just precious. But I think that's really that definition of fulfillment is when you grasp it with that kind of enthusiasm and you recognize source in everything that we do. And when you're filled with that gratitude, it's so much easier to feel that fulfillment. So when it's said and done, I think she's feeling invincible because she's amazing and does things more amazing than anybody else. So, and I loved that she's full of that gratitude. So I ask you for tonight, tomorrow, or sometime this week, try it in the mirror. Talk about how great you are and that you love your hair. Isn't that great? Because she has that naturally curly hair. How many people have naturally curly hair and hate it? You know? Go for it, Ross. So check into the gratitude. Check into the feeling in your gut of when it is so perfect and comes together. And you connect to the center, to the source, and you feel fulfilled. And then it's bliss. Thank you.